Friday, 30th August 2024, around 12 p.m. The street was crowded with people crossing in every direction near Oxford Circus. Among them was Sofian Hadar. He wasn't moving with the flow of the crowd. Instead, he followed one man closely, a tourist and a heart surgeon visiting from Egypt. Hadar's attention stayed fixed on the man's pocket. Then he reached in, took the phone and tried to walk away. He didn't get far. Two plainclothes officers closed in fast. No warning, no time to run. Seconds later, he was face down on the pavement, officers on top, the stolen phone on the floor. He didn't know it, but they'd been watching him for minutes. This is the story of how London's busiest streets and roads became prime hunting ground, and how Met Police's undercover officers started striking back. In London, mobile phones don't just go missing, they vanish. The scale is almost unbelievable. In the last year alone, nearly 80,000 phones were stolen across the capital. That's the equivalent of one phone every 7 minutes, more than 200 a day. Together, they carry an estimated street value of £50 million. This isn't a crime hidden in dark alleys. It happens in plain sight, on buses, at cafe tables, on crowded pavements, even as people step out of the underground. For victims, there's no warning. 1 second, the phone is in their hand, the next it's gone. Certain boroughs have become hotspots. Westminster is at the top of the list. More than 13,575 phones stolen in just 12 months. A 23% rise compared to the year before, making it the most dangerous part of the country for phone theft. Lambeth, Camden, Hackney and Southwark are not far behind. The pattern is clear. Areas filled with tourists, commuters and constant footfall are prime hunting grounds. The methods are swift and silent. Gangs operate on mopeds and high-powered modified e-bikes, weaving through traffic with precision. Riders often wear balaclavas or helmets, concealing their faces as they strike. A single hand reaches out, snatches the phone, and within seconds they are gone, swallowed by the city's endless movement. What makes this epidemic more serious is what happens after the theft. Inside each device lies far more than a replacement cost. Bank accounts, personal photographs, social media, even digital IDs. Once accessed, the value multiplies. Some victims lose their savings in minutes. Others watch as their stolen phone resurfaces on the other side of the world. The majority of targets are iPhones. Police say up to 80% of stolen handsets are Apple devices, chosen because of their high resale value and demand in overseas markets. Step outside these hotspot areas and the contrast is striking. In rural counties like North Stephen in Lincolnshire, reports of theft are almost non-existent, just 3 cases per 100,000 people. The divide is stark. In central London, phones vanish daily in their thousands. In much of the rest of the country, it barely registers at all. London now accounts for a significant share of Europe's stolen phones, far more than any other city. For gangs, it's low risk, high reward. For the capital, it has become an epidemic. And for the Metropolitan Police, it is a battle they cannot afford to lose. By 2024, videos of e-bike gangs grabbing devices in seconds filled social media feeds. The backlash landed directly on London's mayor, Sadiq Khan. Critics accused him of letting phone theft spiral into an epidemic. Headlines described the capital as the phone-mugging capital of Europe. Khan responded by promising a crackdown. Met deployed more undercover and plainclothes officers in the worst-hit boroughs. This wasn't random policing, it was targeted. Intelligence-led patrols were sent into Westminster, Camden, Hackney and Southwark, the hotspots identified by crime maps and data analysis. Alongside the policing effort, technology companies were pushed to act. In 2024, Google introduced new software for Android phones designed to make stolen devices completely useless to thieves. The update included a theft detection lock, which uses AI to sense when a phone is snatched and locks it instantly. An offline device. Lock keeps the phone secure even if thieves try to cut internet access, while enhanced factory reset protection stops criminals from wiping the handset and selling it on. Together, these features made it far harder to reset or resell a stolen phone, cutting into the resale market gangs relied on. Sadiq Khan hailed it as an important step in breaking the business model of phone crime, though critics argued software alone would not solve a crisis happening daily on London streets. The Met confirmed that more than 750 stolen phones had been recovered in the first half of 2024 alone. Many of those recoveries came directly from these undercover operations. Detectives used not just manpower, but technology, tracking phones through Find My iPhone data, intercepting devices as they were moved to shipping hubs, even disguising themselves among tourists on Oxford Street to lure gangs into making a move. It was a tactical shift, a move from reactive policing to proactive hunting. But it wasn't just about catching a thief in the act, it was about gathering surveillance, building intelligence, and using each arrest to expose the wider network, tracing phones beyond the street snatch and into the supply chains moving devices abroad. In his own words, Khan called it part of delivering a new Met for London. A policing plan, he says, will be smarter, more visible, and more responsive. For critics, the measures came too late. But for the plainclothes officers now patrolling alongside tourists and commuters, it was the only way forward. Zakaria Sanajki never snatched a phone himself. He didn't circle the pavements on a bike or push through the crowds on Oxford Street. His work began once the theft was done. Police said more than 5,000 stolen phones passed through his hands, each one logged, wrapped, and prepared for shipment. His Cricklewood base operated less like a criminal den and more like a logistics hub. Phones were stacked, labeled, and readied for export as if they were legitimate cargo. Sanajki's reach stretched far beyond London. Working with his lieutenant, Ahmed Abdelhakim Belhanafi, the pair moved devices across Europe and North Africa. Phones stolen in Westminster were traced abroad, with investigators confirming Algeria as a key destination where many of the devices ended up. Profits were significant. Police noted that once shipped abroad, stolen iPhones fetched far higher prices than in London's street market, making them as lucrative as drug deals, but with far lower risk. For criminals used to risky cocaine or heroin deals, phones were safer, cleaner, and just as lucrative. Detectives described the operation as highly organized, more like a logistics chain than a street gang, with stock moving out and money flowing back through covert channels. Police also warned that the trade was becoming attractive to wider criminal groups, who saw stolen phones as a safer and easier source of cash compared to traditional drug crime. The process was ruthless in its efficiency. Stolen phones were quickly disabled from tracking apps. Many were wrapped in foil or carbon paper to block detection, then hidden inside shipping containers misdeclared as food or textiles. Others moved through couriers or were carried abroad by mules. Detectives soon uncovered evidence that the phones weren't just being sold on London streets. They were being funneled into a far larger system, one that would be exposed in dramatic fashion. For months, undercover officers watched. They weren't just looking for the street thieves, they were following the phones. Every snatch left a trail. Some victims used Find My iPhone to report the last known signal. Others handed over serial numbers to the police. Slowly, a picture began to form. Phones weren't staying in London. As we discussed earlier, they disappeared into warehouses, courier vans, and cargo shipments headed abroad. The breakthrough came at Heathrow Airport. Border officials, tipped off by detectives, intercepted a consignment. Inside were more than 1,000 foil-wrapped phones, stacked in boxes and ready for export. Each one was traced back to thefts in London, and each one linked to the same network, Zakaria Sanajki and Ahmed Belhanafi. By then, investigators had built up weeks of surveillance on the pair. Plainclothes teams tracked their movements through northwest London. They noted meetings with known associates, late-night visits to shipping yards, and countless trips to courier firms. To the outside world, it looked like routine logistics. To the Met, it was evidence of organized crime. The arrests came swiftly. In early morning raids, officers forced entry into addresses in Cricklewood and surrounding areas. Inside Sanajgi's base, they found phones stacked in bags and drawers, many still labeled and prepared for shipment. Digital forensics later uncovered thousands of IMEI numbers logged on spreadsheets, a detailed record of stolen stock moving through the network. Panafi was arrested at his own home. Apart from him, 2 more arrests were made. Nazi Chiraitia, who played a key role in handling and moving stolen phones through the network, and Riyad Mamouni, 25, who helped process devices and move them onwards for resale. Each was another link in the chain that carried phones from London streets into international markets. In total, over 5,000 devices were linked to the network. The Met said the seizure represented just a fraction of the phones trafficked abroad, but it was enough. With the cargo haul, the spreadsheets and the surveillance logs, prosecutors had the evidence they needed. For Sanajgi and Panafi, the game was over. The men who had built an empire on stolen phones were finally in custody. He wasn't a mastermind, nor a man sitting behind spreadsheets and export routes. Sonny Stringer was something else entirely, a frontline thief. Armed with a high-speed Surron e-bike, he prowled through the city of London. One night alone, he stole 24 mobile phones. He didn't need intimidation or violence. All it took was a quick reach, a twist of the wrist, and the bike carried him away before victims even realized their phone was gone. Detectives later said it was almost industrial in scale. The spree was tracked through CCTV cameras, officers following the route of the bike across the square mile. They watched as Stringer cut through alleys, slowed at crossings, and circled crowds. Eventually, the cameras picked him up, retreating to a hiding spot. When officers closed in, they found him with a bag containing 22 stolen phones, the haul from a single night's work. Stringer showed no remorse. He wasn't interested in the impact on victims or the disruption to their lives. For him, theft was simply business. Each phone had a resale value, and in the criminal economy of London, phones were as tradable as cash. Unlike drugs or weapons, there was no need to conceal contraband or fear lengthy sentences. Stolen iPhones moved quickly into the same supply chains run by men like Zakaria Sanajgi and Ahmed Belhanafi. Stringer's spree showed a new kind of criminal, fast, opportunistic thieves on e-bikes. For London's police, Stringer's arrest was a visible win, but he was only one rider among many. Near London Bridge, by the river-facing arc of Hayes Galleria, a thief reached in and ran. It was quick, a lift from the hand, a turn of pace, the victim instinctively giving chase. Most days, that's where it ends. The crowd swallows the runner, the phone is gone, and the trail starts cold. This time, an unmarked police car happened to be on the same stretch of road. Officers saw the snatch, swung a tight U-turn, and accelerated into the path the suspect was taking. The footage, released by the Metropolitan Police on their social channels, shows the timing in stark detail. Bumper across the route, doors opening, officers out. The man has nowhere to go. Seconds later, he's on the pavement and the phone is back with its owner. From first grab to arrest was under a minute. No long chase through backstreets, no delayed call-out. Just proximity, observation, and a decisive block that cut the escape before it started. For the victim, it meant something rare in this kind of crime, and for the officers, it was confirmation that plainclothes and unmarked deployments can interrupt a theft before the device enters the pipeline. Although it doesn't solve the scale of the problem, but it proves the core point of the Met's approach in hotspots: quiet presence, close observation, fast intervention. When it works, a theft that's usually over in seconds can be overturned in the same time. The crackdown didn't stop with high-profile chases. The Met widened its net, rolling out a wave of plainclothes and covert operations across the capital, from Soho to Croydon, targeting street-level packers, smugglers, and fence networks. Kadi Nasser, 25, was caught in Soho by 2 undercover officers as he snatched a phone. He pleaded guilty and was jailed for 30 weeks. The device was promptly returned to its owner. a rare win in a world where the stolen often vanish forever. In the city, Oliver Brady, 27, was apprehended after snatching a phone from a blind commuter. A City of London beadle, a ceremonial officer, intervened, tackled him, and held him until officers arrived. Brady pleaded guilty to multiple thefts and was given a 2-year and 3-month sentence at the Old Bailey. Meanwhile, in Croydon, Amari Scott, 20, was traced through CCTV and found inside a shop clutching 2 phones. Police described the interception as part of a broader, laser-like focus on phone crime hotspots. These local busts illustrate 2 layers of enforcement: catching the snatchers and dismantling the downstream operations that funnel stolen phones into reseller chains. Another dimension emerged, including multi-device seizures tied to covert work. In a week-long coordinated operation, the Met arrested over 200 suspects and recovered at least 1,000 stolen phones. Plainclothes teams, uniform patrols, phone tracking tech, second-hand shop raids, and intelligence from cargo manifests were all part of an industrial-scale suppression strategy. The use of IMEI tracking, chain of custody analysis, CCTV mapping, and cargo records allowed detectives not just to arrest individuals, but to follow stolen devices from snatch to sale. Some remain out on bail, including peripheral associates, indicating the network's resilience. It highlights the ongoing cat-and-mouse game. For every takedown, others stand ready to fill the void. Every small victory, NASA tackled, Brady detained, Scott intercepted, is another fracture in the machinery of theft. It's a reminder that public vigilance, plainclothes vigilance, and technological oversight must remain aligned. Only then can London begin to break the cycle. Westminster, the very heart of British politics. Floodlit streets, government buildings on every corner, CCTV on every lamppost. If anywhere should feel safe, it's here. But for Labour MP Chris Webb, the walk home from Parliament turned into something else entirely. A group of masked riders on e-bikes closed in fast. 5, maybe 6. Just a hand into his pocket. And his iPhone was gone. For a moment, Webb stood stunned. An elected member of Parliament, mugged just yards from the Palace of Westminster. But he had one advantage: his Apple Watch. Within seconds, he'd locked the device and started tracking it. The signal pulsed across the map, leading officers to a suspect carrying a bag crammed with stolen phones. Webb's handset wasn't inside, but the arrest proved the gangs were circling even the most heavily guarded part of London. The impact rippled through Parliament. The Whip's office sent out an urgent notice to every MP. Colleagues should be aware that a number of MPs have had their phones snatched within the vicinity of the estate. Be wary when not on the estate. The warning was blunt. If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. Westminster, a place of armed police, barriers, and 24-hour patrols, had become a hunting ground. This wasn't just about one stolen phone. It was a message. No one is untouchable, not even those in government. Phone thefts can happen anywhere, at any time, but there are simple steps you can take to stay safe. First, awareness. Thieves rely on surprise. They strike when you're distracted, texting, or walking with your phone in your hand. Keep devices tucked away near busy roads or crossings. If you need to use it, step inside a shop or stand with your back against a wall. Second, secure your phone. Both Apple and Android now allow you to lock and track stolen devices remotely. Features like Find My iPhone, Google's Find My Device, and the new theft detection lock. Third, protect your data. Use strong passcodes, biometric locks, and disable notifications on your lock screen. Many thefts don't stop at the phone itself. Limiting access is as important as locking the device. Fourth, know the hotspots. Westminster, Camden, Hackney, and Suffolk record the highest levels of theft. Around train stations, shopping streets, and late-night venues, vigilance is key. Finally, report fast. The Met urges victims to call immediately. even if they think recovery is unlikely. Every IMEI logged, every location tracked, builds intelligence against the wider networks. Your report may be the link that ties a street thief to an international shipment. London's phone crime epidemic may feel unstoppable, but prevention, vigilance, and tech safeguards shift the balance. As police move undercover to fight organized gangs, the rest is down to awareness on the street. In this battle, one rule stands. The harder your phone is to steal and use, the less value it has to thieves. At Isleworth Crown Court, the picture of the network came into focus. This was not random street theft. It was structured, international, and deliberate. Zakaria Sanajki, 31, described by detectives as the head of the operation, received the heaviest penalty, 8 years in prison. His lieutenant and the right-hand man, Ahmed Abdelhakim Belhanafi, was handed 4 years, 8 months. 2 of their key associates were also sentenced. Charatia from Acton was convicted of conspiracy to receive stolen goods and possessing an ID document with improper intention. He was sentenced to 3 years and 5 months, whereas Mamouni, 25, from Notting Hill, was convicted of conspiracy to receive stolen goods and sentenced to 2 years and 8 months. On the front line, prolific street thief Sonny Stringer was sentenced to 2 years. The judge told him his crimes symbolized the speed and brazenness of a new kind of offender. Meanwhile, on the streets, Kadi Nasser, 25, pleaded guilty and was jailed for 30 weeks. Then, the 2 asylum seekers, Youssef Garef and Amin Abdelkader, were also convicted. Abdelkader was handed a 2-year community order and Garef was given a 3-year community order. Both will have to complete 150 hours of unpaid work and 40 hours of a rehabilitation activity requirement. They will also be subject to a 6-month curfew between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. and must reside at the Home Office Asylum Centre in Islington. Oliver Brady, 27, of Edmonton, was jailed for 2 years and 3 months at the Old Bailey. Amari Scott, 20, received 4 years imprisonment after CCTV captured him. And then there were the quick arrests, like Sofian Hadar, caught red-handed near Oxford Circus after stealing from a tourist. He pleaded guilty and received 11 months in prison. What do you think about the sentences and the case itself? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more true UK crime stories told exactly as they happened, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on. There's always another case to uncover.